Will the real Mike Tomlin please stand up? Let's give you the truth behind Mike Tomlin's non-losing season streak, and it might not be all what it's cracked up to be. Welcome back to Mike Drop Sports, everybody. I'm Jason. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. A guy that was named the third head coach since 1969, the 16th overall coach total for the whole franchise. A guy that came in at 34 years old, but I want to give you the numbers behind Mike Tomlin's career, his statistics on winning against quality teams, poor teams, middle of the road teams. Let's give you the real truth about this streak, guys, and maybe let you form your own opinion here on what you think the Steelers should do moving forward. Should they extend a contract for Mike Tomlin? Should they move on after 2024? Let's see what the Pittsburgh Steelers should do, at least in our eyes, after hearing the numbers in a way that I don't think that you've ever heard them before. And I want to thank one of our subscribers, Ryan, for compiling this information for me and handing it over to me and allowing me the privilege of presenting this information to you in a way, again, that I don't think that you've really heard Mike Tomlin's non-losing season streak broke down before. So let's dive into it, guys. Forgive me if I read some statistics to you, but Ryan has given me this opportunity to present this information and give you my commentary and thoughts on this information. And let's get started with it. Mike Tomlin, opponents' total wins. These are reverse teams that have total wins of like 16, 15, 14. So we're going to break that down and give you his win percentage versus these teams. 16 win teams. He's only faced a 16 win team once, and he has 0-1. So he has a 0% win percentage. 15 win teams. He's never faced a 15 win team. 14 win teams. This is a really interesting one. This is a good football team and a 14 win team. And he is 0 for 5 in those tries and a 0% winning percentage. That's pretty sad. You get to 13 win teams. Teams that there's a lot of 13 win teams in my eyes. Good football teams, quality programs. And Mike Tomlin is only 7-10, 17 games versus those guys with 13 wins, and his winning percentage is below 500 at 0.412%. That's not really good, that great either. And then here is another real staggering one. 13 win teams, or 12 win teams. 12 wins in the NFL is considered a really good season if you can rattle off 12 wins during the regular season. And Mike Tomlin is 7-14 against those teams, a .333%. That's pretty bad. That means if you really look at this in the top here, Mike Tomlin has not performed against good teams very well. He is a big-time loser in a lot of these games. Now he makes up a little ground here against 11-win teams, 15-8 with a .652 win percentage. That's a pretty good number. But then you start to get down to the 10-win teams. He is a losing record against those teams at 14-16 with a .467% win percentage. You get down to 9-win teams. Mike Tomlin seems to be able to handle business against these guys. 17-6 with a .739% win percentage. 8-win teams. He's 20-8 against 8-win teams. So that's a .714%. 7-win teams. He's 26-11 with a .703 win percentage. So, guys, we often talk about Mike Tomlin and that he doesn't beat teams he's supposed to, but maybe it's not as bad as we think against that. He doesn't beat good teams is what we're seeing here. Then you get to 6-win teams. He's 14-3 against 6-win team guys, and that's a .824 win percentage. Mike Tomlin against 5-win teams, 16-8, .667 win percentage. 4-win teams, 18-9. That's another .667 win percentage. 3-win teams. He's 4-0 against those guys with a 1,000 win percentage. 2-win teams. He's 8-1, .889. In 1-win teams, he's 4-0 against them. 1.00, a perfect winning percentage. 0-win teams. He's 2-0, perfect again in the win percentage department. But what do those statistics there tell us? That Mike Tomlin doesn't beat good teams. He has bad record against teams that are winners. Very bad record against teams that are winners, guys. That's just one. That's just one part of it. So we broke down his wins and losses versus teams that have good records or don't have good records. So basically, Mike Tomlin beats teams that he really should 90% of the time, but really cannot beat the good teams, and he loses to them very consistently. Career record throughout the years, he was 10-6 in 07, 12-4 in 08, 9-7 in 09, 12-4, 12-4, 8-8, 8-8, 11-5, 10-6, 11-5, 13-3, 9-6-1, 8-8, 12-4, 9-7-1, 9-8, and then this year 10-7. Mike Tomlin, those are his career non-losing streak right there. That's how it goes. Those are his record. Respectable. We'll give him that. But since the Colts in 1981, the most points per game allowed have been by the Pittsburgh Steelers, 33.3 points per game. That's a staggering statistic for a guy that's supposed to be a defensive-minded head coach. Since Dick LeBeau left the Steelers in 2014, the average of 29.9 points per game against in the playoffs. That is a horrible points per game average since 2014. That tells me you can't stop anybody. And since Dick LeBeau has left, basically, you're telling me that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense has been subpar at best. They've had times when they've been good, but the average tells me that they've not been that great. Since the last season where Tomlin had a playoff win over Kansas City, the defense is allowing, listen to this guys, since the Steelers' last playoff win, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is allowing 40.4 points per game. That's kind of crazy for yet a defensive-minded head coach, a guy that is supposed to be top shelf defensively. It's kind of crazy. Now, here's some numbers some of you might not like, some of you might argue, some of you might not really care for, but I think it's one that really means something, guys. It really, really does. And that is in Mike Tomlin's 2008 Super Bowl team that he had. There were 24 players out of the 53-man roster that were remaining from the 2005 Bill Cowher Super Bowl winning team. 24. What does that tell you? That Mike Tomlin didn't build that team. There were 14 guys out of 22 possible starters defensively and offensively. Over half of that team starters were all from Bill Cowher's 2005 Super Bowl team. That tells me, and I hate to say it, but Mike Tomlin did not build that winning team. And if you look at his records, you look at his playoff success, he has had no success since having a Cowher-built team. He hasn't. He's had average teams. And when he has made himself get some chances, they've been embarrassed in the biggest moments. Losing the Super Bowl to Green Bay, losing in the AFC Championship game to the Patriots. And those are his two biggest moments in all of these years. Is that enough for you? Should that be enough for the Pittsburgh Steelers organization? It's just kind of crazy to me that it is good enough. Because most coaches in the NFL would be fired for being so average and never getting above that hump, never making it past that next plateau. And if you do get the rare occasion that you do make it over the hump to get in big important games, you lose those games and you lose them by big margins. It's staggering, guys, to hear this stuff. Tomlin has had 10 seasons of 10-plus wins. That's .588 winning percentage, yet his record against teams with 10-plus wins is 43-54, which is below the 500 mark at .443. So Mike Tomlin, yes, he's had some 10-win teams. He's had 10 of them throughout his career. 10 of them. But he can't beat other 10-win teams. So he's getting his wins versus teams that he should beat. And he even has failures against them. But he does. He gets the majority of his wins against teams that he should beat. And he very, very seldom ever beats teams that are really good. 10-plus wins or better. He very seldom can beat them. So if you're a betting man and you're a guy that's picking these games and you see that this team has 10 wins or, what projected to have 10 wins, you probably are better to bet against the Pittsburgh Steelers because chances are they're going to lose. Over half the time they do lose with a 43-54 record. That's horrible. For a guy that the national media puts on a pedestal as if he is the greatest coach ever, the numbers speak for themselves. He's really not in my eyes. Just my opinion so far in reading this. We'll continue to talk further. He has faced teams with 14 plus wins 6 times and is 0 for 6, guys. That tells you he can't beat big or good teams in big games. He can't get it done. He's never been able to get it done throughout his career. He's never has. He is also 14 and 30, a .318% win percentage against teams that ended up with 12 wins in a season. Guys, your coach can't beat good teams. And it's at a absolute staggering clip. Most of his wins versus quality teams come in the front half of his career, with a team that he didn't build. These numbers, guys, you had to hear them. Because honestly, some of them don't sound bad. You're right, some of them don't. But when you look at this in a big picture, you look at this overall, it's not good for your head coach. It's just not. It don't look good in my eyes. It doesn't, at least in the way I'm looking at it. After seeing these numbers, it seems to me that yes, Mike Tomlin can beat average to below average teams on a consistent basis and still gets a lot of losses there. But when you get in these teams that are good to great, he comes away with no wins. He is like over in all of the categories. He cannot win big games. He just can't. Yes, he won a Super Bowl, but if you look at that team, it wasn't really a team that Mike Tomlin built. I want to see him win with a team that he built, a team that is all his, a team that he assembled. When you have leftovers from the 05 Super Bowl team and Cowher's teams, you have guys that know how to be leaders. You have guys that know how to get things done. You have veterans, and they're able to carry your team. And once those guys start retiring, your team starts to fail. And we saw that with Mike Tomlin's teams. We see that with the numbers. We see that with the record. And should the Pittsburgh Steelers consider bringing this guy back for another contract again? Or should you see, does this season end differently than the others, the season that we are going to be approaching? Is he able to help with Omar Khan and finally help build a quality roster? And we can't pass all the blame on to Mike Tomlin, because I think Kevin Colbert has some blame in this also with these anemic numbers, some of the failed draft picks. I don't think it's all Mike Tomlin's fault. But he is the head coach, and ultimately it falls on him. It falls on his head, and that's just the way it goes. You can take all the good, but you got to take some of the bad too. It's just the way it is, guys. And Mike Tomlin, the league's longest tenured active head coach, longest tenured in one franchise heading into next season. It's kind of crazy to me that the Pittsburgh Steelers are okay with just being okay. It doesn't make any sense. Do the Steelers need to move on? Will everyone start looking at Mike Tomlin in a little bit different light? Now that you've seen these numbers or heard these numbers, now that you've seen them, now that you heard them, what do you think? Put it in the comments and let me know what you think. Am I overreacting to these numbers? Are these numbers not that important? I think the numbers don't lie, and the proof's in the pudding. When you can't beat quality teams, it's time to move on. There's something wrong within your organization. There's something wrong at its core. There's something wrong where it matters. If you can never win against quality opponents, you will have failure after failure for decades. Where do you start to cast the blame? Where do you start to make the changes? There's one common denominator in all this, guys, and that is Mike Tomlin himself. Yes, he doesn't want to retire. Yes, he may be good friends with players, and players may love to play for him in that way. But does he get the job done? I don't think he does. You win against teams that you should 90% of the time, 85% of the time. But teams that you're expected to start beating that are good to elite to get you over that next step, that next hump, that next bump in the road, Mike Tomlin fails over and over again, and his teams never ever get past that. They never take that next step. They never take that next leap. Even with a Hall of Fame franchise quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, they weren't able to get there. The one time they were, they lost to the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. The next time they had a chance, which is many years later, making it back to the AFC Championship game, they get outcoached and embarrassed by Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. When I was a kid, I had another commenter, and I think it might have been Ryan also, the guy that compiled this information. I think, yes, it was him. When I was a kid, when he was a kid, in Cowher's teams and the beginning of Mike Tomlin's teams there, I suppose you could incorporate that. It felt like the Pittsburgh Steelers were always in the mix in the playoffs, always in the AFC Championship game. They did make it to Super Bowls. It just felt like they were always having a chance. And with these Pittsburgh Steelers teams here in the last decade or so, you feel like they don't have a chance in hell. It is never a real positive type feeling. You really feel like they need a ton of luck to make it into the tournament, and they are going to be a guaranteed, for sure, no doubt, first round exit. Does that come down to lack of discipline? You heard Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, players like that say that the team lacks structure, the team lacks discipline, and it is what it is. Does it come down to Mike Tomlin and his poor hires, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, to where maybe X's and O's, schematically, they are getting out-coached? Does it come down to Mike Tomlin's poor situational football? Does he not possess enough ability to be able to make those calls in critical moments? Does he fail in that area? What is the problem, guys? Put it in the comments. Let me know what you think the problem is. Let me know what you think about these numbers, and let's really dive into what we think the Pittsburgh Steelers should do past 2024. Moving into that head coaching extension with Mike Tomlin, is that something this team should pursue? I'm going to say, in my opinion, no. I think it's time to move on. I'm going to say that a lot of it depends on this next upcoming season, the last year of his contract. Do the Steelers change? Does Mike Tomlin show the ability to change and really start to let this football team grow in a different way and allow guys from the outside to come in and put their fingerprints on it, and Mike Tomlin become a more disciplined type coach, a guy that has more structure inside of the building and really reels some of these guys in that may not be doing what they need to do in order to be elite players? Does Mike Tomlin stop having so much loyalty and move on from aging guys that just because he likes them, he holds on to them? Maybe let them go and find some young talent and move on and regroup a little bit. I think a lot of it will depend on Mike Tomlin's ability to change this season as to whether the Pittsburgh Steelers warrant a contract extension for your head coach. And I think it is going to be a big year for Mike Tomlin. And if he has a big year and he chooses to go somewhere else to coach, then so be it. You've got your numbers. You've seen what he can do. And I think just not having a losing season doesn't mean shit, dude. You don't beat good teams. You don't win in the playoffs. You don't rebound from bad seasons. You continually stay the same. You never change. And I don't think that that's good enough anymore for your Pittsburgh Steelers, for this franchise that we cheer for. I think it's time for a big change and a big shakeup inside of that building. And it has to happen soon, really soon, before the Pittsburgh Steelers continue to fall behind this NFL that has become very modern, and they have stayed very, very vanilla. They have stayed very stale. They have not progressed, and I think it's about time the Pittsburgh Steelers come to the modern era and start to compete for Lombardi trophies again and get that Pittsburgh Steelers energy, lore back to where teams are starting to be afraid to play that Pittsburgh Steelers logo on the side of that helmet, to where teams respect the Steelers once again and don't just say to themselves, hey, we're a good team. They can't beat good teams. Here comes a big W for us. We're going to dominate them. They're vanilla. We know what they're going to do. It's just the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's make them now start thinking that's what we need to do if you're the Steelers. You need to make teams fear you again. You need to make teams respect you. And until that happens, you're going to have these same results. No winning seasons against, or no winning games against big name teams, good teams, elite teams. And you're going to continue to stumble and fail. And Mike Tomlin's going to continue to pad his average numbers to make people think that he is something more than what he really is. Again, guys, thank you, Ryan, for compiling some of these numbers for us. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And until next time, this is Mike Drop Sports. I'm Jason. Peace.